Why aren't my deals dying? Why aren't my deals being killed because it's taken too long to bring the candidate to the decision point? I think the keys are going to be the habits and some of the techniques during the sales process. And that's what we're going to focus on in today's podcast. Do you always book the next call before you've ended the call that you're on? I can't tell you how many consultants and how many Fran Dev people that I talk to that is like a light bulb that goes off over the top of their head when I tell them to do that. You realize that as a habit, if you don't do that, as a habit of not doing that, what's happening is each and every time you need to set an appointment for the next step, the next conversation, you're adding 1 to sometimes 3, maybe 4, 5 days to each step. So think about that. Add that up. If you're if you have 8 or 10 steps or 8 or 10 conversations with your candidates, guess what? That is a minimum of 8 to 10 days, and more likely 3, maybe sometimes 4 weeks. And that's just too much time to be added to the decision making process, your candidate evaluation process, your sales process, if you're going to make deals. Now, again, we all know that most deals are going to close in somewhere between 70 to 100 days. You know it needs some time to do certain things. And so that's why it's so important that you have the right habits and you're doing the right techniques in the process to keep your people to 70 to 100 days. Because if it goes much past 100, maybe 110 days, the law of diminishing returns sets in. The odds of you closing that person go down pretty much with every week that they end up dragging into the process. So again, so the first point today is always book your next call before you end the one that you're on. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about, a habit to build or something to build into your sales process, is going to be positioning. Now, 80% of our prospects have never done anything like this before. They've never looked at buying a business before. They've never gone through a due diligence process. They've never read an FDD. They've never been through an evaluation or a recruitment process or a sales process to buy a business. And so they don't know how long it should take. And if you don't tell them and keep them on track, it's going to be as long as they feel like going through the process. And again, that is going to work against you in the long run. So the second tip is positioning the amount of time it should take them. You want to tell them, and then obviously you want to keep them on that pace. And you will not be rushing them and you will not be trying to sell them anything because they will be expecting to go along at a certain pace and make a decision in a certain period of time. And again, you need to educate them about that, but it's all involves the positioning that you do with them early in your relationship. Now, the last tip I'm going to bring you today regarding why my deals aren't dragging on and why my deals aren't being killed or dying. The last one, in addition to always setting the next call up and then positioning the amount of time it should take them, the last tip I'm going to share with you today is that you should start them on a funding search before they've made their ultimate decision. Hopefully, you have some relationships already built up that you can refer people to depending on their circumstances. It's good to have a bad credit reference, a bad credit person that you can refer to, and then the ideal credit kind of a person. It's good to have someone who can do 401k rollovers as well as someone who can do SBA loans. But the important thing here is that you get them started on funding the business early in the process. I recommend you get them started on that in the first 30 days. Now, some people are going to react and say, well, no, I'll get to that. Well, I haven't made a decision yet. And you just simply want to tell them that If they don't make the decision and they've been pre-approved, then they just don't take the money, or pardon me, they don't make the decision to move forward, then they just don't take the money. They're not paying anything to get approved. They're simply running through a process to get funding for the business. And by the third or fourth week with you, they have a handle on approximately how much money they would be borrowing for this. So that's a good time and a valid time that they can go to lenders and start discussing how to fund a purchase of a franchise. That piece, that funding piece, if you're lucky, it could take maybe only about 30 days. But in most cases, and depending on the economy and how busy banks are, and is it SBA or not SBA, and is it 401k rollover or not, and the employer's rules for rolling over a 401k and so forth and so on, you've got to plan for 4 to 6 to maybe even as long as 8 weeks. So relate that back to 70 to 100 days, which is neighborhood of 12 and 13 weeks. You should get your candidates looking at funding sources, getting pre-approved sometime between week 4. Start them week 3, 4, 5, and then they're approved by the time they're making the decision. So wrapping this up, your habits that you build, the techniques that you apply in your sales process will help you control the amount of time it takes for them to make a decision. And time kills deals, so you want to control that process. So the 3 tips from today were: do you always book the next call before you've ended your call? Are you positioning how long it should take them so that they're programmed to make a decision in 70 to 100 days? And then the third tip was: get them started early on their funding so they haven't made a decision and then have to wait another 4 to 6 to 8 weeks to actually start their franchise. So if you want more ways to close more deals, to close them faster, and to make more money, you can find out some other free tips and learnings on my free masterclass video, which is FSA for Franchise Sales Accelerator, fsacourse.com/masterclass.